All right, here we are. So in John, in the book of John somewhere, Jesus says, he says, all men will know that you're my disciples by what? How much you love one another, right? So, just to express it, everybody find somebody to tell I love you to. Speak I love you to somebody. Hey? Doesn't have to be a romantic I love you. It can be just thank you. It can be, actually I think what Jesus talks about there is not the husband and wife romantic type of love, although that's certainly of Jesus and of God too, but he's talking about the relational, brotherly, sisterly love among his children. A love that carries through a lot of stuff and that keeps them together no matter what comes, right? So that love, the unnatural, the unhuman love is what people will notice when they see God's children, God's people. So the ungodly will look and recognize these people must be Jesus people because they love each other incredibly. I don't know how they can love each other this much, but they do. So they must be of Jesus. So I thought that was encouraging. All right. So I've been reading in the first part of the Bible lately. Lakeisha kind of challenged me to it. And so she's going to read through the Bible at a fast pace, and I was going to join her, but she's way ahead. But I got stuck in the past. I've been reading in Exodus lately, and thought I'd talk about something there that kind of jumped out at me. And it is in the story of Moses, which is obviously Exodus. Moses was a interesting man by a lot of different measures, but he was one thing that always is kind of humorous, not really humorous. It actually is encouraging to me, and I think I've said this before, but Moses was a man who was 40 years old when he kind of jumped ahead of God a little bit, and he got in trouble, and he fled to the wilderness. I'm about 40, maybe a little past, but not much. And he was 40 and he fled to the wilderness. He spent another whole 40 years in the wilderness, herding sheep, got married, had kids, and I'm sure he thought that was what his life was like. Welcome, ladies. Come on in. Good to see you. So he spent another 40 years there in the wilderness, and I'm pretty sure he thought this is what my life is like. Like I'm Egypt and all its wonderful glory that he had grown up in. He had grown up with a royal family, so he had a really good memory of Egypt as far as comforts goes. But he wound up in the wilderness. And so another 40 years, and then God calls him to his real purpose in life, his real calling in life. So I've thought of that quite often over time, how the seasons in life can be so different than we as humans would plan out. And God's ways can all of a sudden look so different than what we would have thought as the best. But anyways, just how God and his divine plan can be so different than what we would plan. But anyway, so then at 80 years old, he gets called to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. And he has the burning bush experience and all of that. But then what I want to get into is what happened with Pharaoh. I want to read in Exodus 7 to start. And let's notice something about Pharaoh here and what's happening in his heart. It says, "Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying," this is when Moses and Aaron are first in front of Pharaoh, and God is showing some miraculous things through Moses and Aaron and that whole experience. "Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, Show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aaron, Take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron went in to Pharaoh, and they did so, just as the Lord commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, so the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For every man threw down his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, as the Lord had said. So the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hard. He refuses to let the people go. So it talks about a hard heart. And that's what kind of popped out at me as I was reading there. And you hear that theme over and over in the following chapters, where they go through the 10 plagues. And over and over again, Pharaoh's heart winds up hard. So I wanted to look at that a little bit today, because we don't want to be like Pharaoh. I don't want to be like Pharaoh. I don't want to have a hard heart. I want to have a soft heart. So it looks like there's the dynamic then too of Pharaoh hardened his heart, but then as the plagues progressed, then it becomes God hardening Pharaoh's heart, which is an interesting dynamic to itself. But it seems Pharaoh's heart was hard at the beginning, and then as he kept on hardening his heart, then God actually hardened his heart for him. And at first that sounds very strange, like why would God harden somebody's heart? Excuse me, but I think it's actually a reality that we see in Scripture and other places too, but there's a progression. If we continue to harden our heart, there's a danger in that eventually we get so far that God He pushes us even further in that direction. How would I explain it? I wish I had the right words, but maybe a little later here we can go into that a little bit in more detail. But that dynamic is what we see happening with Pharaoh, and I think it's a warning, I guess, to us today that we are careful not to harden our heart, because at some point it gets so far that we don't have control of it anymore. We need God to bring us back to our senses. Like it's kind of like falling over the edge, and then you can't get back up again without help. So okay, so the original Hebrew word or words that were used for the hardening of Pharaoh's hearts are three different words, but two of them primarily, and one of them is chazak, and it means to tighten the grip or to make resolute. So they would have used that word for, like, if a soldier carries a sword and all of a sudden a battle starts and he tightens his grip, that's the type of hardening that's the word that would have been used for. That's translated harden here for Pharaoh's heart, and probably about half of the times it's that word. Also, that word would have been used for a city that builds a wall around itself. That wall is this word would have been used for that wall. So it's you become resolute. It's a fortress type of a thing. So the heart being hardened then is it becomes more so. Whatever it is, it becomes more than it was. So you tighten the grip and you put even a thicker wall around your heart. So the heart hardens in that way. The other word is kaved, which is to be heavy or unresponsive. So it's a weighty, it's a heavy heart, it's a dead heart. And if we look at other phrases in the Bible where I think it talks about the similar dynamic, it's the word a stony heart, a heart of stone. In let's see here. Looks like I have it down lower, but there is a verse in Ezekiel 36:26 says, "I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh." So those are also words that describe the same dynamic, I think, that was happening with Pharaoh. So Pharaoh first hardened his heart, and then God hardened his heart. Towards the end, it was God hardening his heart even more. Exodus 9:12, just as an example of that, says, "But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had spoken to Moses." So that hardness then seems to be something that progresses. It doesn't necessarily happen all at once where a heart gets hard. It's a progression of decisions, a progression of attitudes, a progression of responses to events or people around us. Another verse, Proverbs 28:14 says, "Happy is the man who is always reverent, but he who hardens his heart will fall into calamity." So a hard heart will bring calamity or trouble. I will get trouble. Like Pharaoh got significant trouble because his heart was hard. He was not reverent. Being reverent and honoring to God, holding God in high esteem, is the opposite of having a hard heart. So little things that we could look at in our life as being signs of hardness or of leaning towards hard-heartedness would be, it could sound like statements like, "Oh, I already know that. You don't need to tell me that. I already know that." Or "This is just how I am. I can't help it. This is just who I am." Or "They deserved it." Or "I don't need correction," or that kind of a thing. And another one is, I know what Scripture says, but ... Like, yeah, this verse says that, but... So justifying ourselves in what we're doing, those are signs of a hardness of heart. One of the clearest signs of a soft heart is the ability to say, "I'm sorry," or "I was wrong." A hard heart has a hard time saying that. So a soft heart recognizes that I may be wrong, or I messed up, type of a thing. Let's see. Here's another few verses out of Hebrews that talk about this same concept. Hebrews 3:7-13. This is actually looking back also at the Israel time, talking about the Israelites' journey through the wilderness and some of the hardness of heart that they showed there when they complained about the food, when they complained about lack of water, when they dishonored God at the Mount Sinai. that whole experience, there was a lot of hardness of heart that the Israelites themselves showed. So this refers to that time when it talks here. It says, "Today, if you will hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as in the rebellion. In the day of trial in the wilderness, where your fathers tested me, tried me, and saw my works 40 years. Therefore I was angry with that generation and said, they always go astray in their heart, and they have not known my ways. So I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Beware, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God. But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin." So a warning of not being hardened by sin or hardened by our tough things that we go through. It also mentions unbelief, which was very obvious with the Israelites. They had unbelief quite a bit in that journey through the wilderness, where they didn't believe God. They lost faith in that everything was going to be okay and that God was really leading them. So it's a daily, it mentions also today here in these verses, while it is called today, and it says, but exhort one another daily. So this is a daily thing. Let's watch our hearts daily, that we don't let them become hardened over time. So now we've talked a bit about what it looks like to have a hard heart. What then is a soft heart? How can we have a soft heart, a heart of flesh, as Ezekiel calls it? So a soft heart is a responsive heart. A soft heart is one that feels things, that hears things, and is responsive to the touches or the words of other people, or especially of God. That's a soft heart. So the verse again in Ezekiel says, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take the heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. So ultimately, God is the one who gives us this soft heart, this heart of flesh that is moldable and that can feel things. So He is the source of it, but we need to guard it. We need to be careful not to let it get hard. A soft heart responds to God's word. It responds to correction. It responds to the needs and suffering of others. It responds to the need to forgive. It responds to God's call to surrender. These are some of the responsive characteristics of a soft heart. Recognizing things outside of oneself and being sympathetic, noticing somebody else's needs around us. That's a soft heart. And then, of course, towards God, honoring His word, honoring His recognizing the awesome and greatness of who God is, and then a position of surrender, always maintaining a position of surrender. I am but a man, but you are God, and you created me, and you can do whatever you want with me, and it's going to be right, it's going to be okay. That's a soft heart towards God. Softness is not weakness. A soft heart doesn't mean that we are weak and that we just let stuff happen around us as it wills without interruption, or not standing up or speaking up if we need to. So softness is not weakness, and this I thought was a really good example of that is in 1 Samuel 24. Says, then the men of David said to him, this is the story of David when Saul was chasing him. Then the men of David said to him, This is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you. And David arose and secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. So they have, you're familiar with the story, I'm sure, but they're in a cave, and then Saul comes to the mouth of the cave without knowing that David and his men are inside the cave further into the ground. And then David has the opportunity to come out and actually kill Saul right there because he's their enemy. But David doesn't do that. He goes and he just cuts a corner of his robe, of Saul's robe. I guess he must have been sleeping. So he cut a piece of his robe off and then he went back. And then the next verse says, Now it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him because he had cut Saul's robe. And he said to his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. That's not a hard heart. That right there is not a hard heart. That's a soft heart. That's a heart that recognizes God and that recognizes even Saul. Just really impressive to me how he wasn't, like David isn't a weak man. He's a strong warrior. He's you would never describe David as a weak man, but he had a soft heart. And he didn't harden his heart even when things went very wrong. And he was running for his life, and he had an enemy that had no reason to be his enemy. David hadn't done anything wrong. In fact, the opposite he had done. He had saved Saul, and he had saved Israel, and he had blessed Saul over and over again. And yet Saul was chasing him, wanting to kill him. And that just kind of spoke to me too, how a man like David could have maintained a soft heart like he did and not let it get hard and bitter and angry and just go and kill Saul when he had the chance. Because technically they were at war with each other. Either one, like it was obvious Saul wanted to kill David. So if you're in a battle like that, well, either I kill you or you kill me, whichever happens first. But David didn't take it that way. He had a soft heart. A soft heart can be strong against evil while remaining tender toward God. So I think it's a good thing to ask myself, where in my heart am I getting hard? Even if overall my heart isn't hard, but is there a certain part of my life? Is there a certain room in my heart? I guess we could describe it that way. Is it getting hard? And the obvious verse for that would be Psalms 139, verse 23 and 24 says, Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Just a beautiful attitude of, Lord, look at me, tell me, is there something going on in my heart that shouldn't be there? Is there some person that I can't stand or that I harbor anger or hatred towards? Is there something that is too important to me that I can't let go? Like stuff like that. Like, Lord, show me, is there anything in my heart that is getting hard? A soft heart, I feel like, is a heart, I think I mentioned it earlier a little bit, but a soft heart feels things. I've noticed it in myself when my heart, I think it's a hardening thing that is happening when my heart ceases to be able to feel much. When things are maybe so heavy around me and I start to feel numb, or I don't feel much anymore. I don't really feel happy. I don't feel sad. I don't really feel much anymore. I've gone through that, and it's not life-giving, that kind of a season or that kind of a day, to feel that. And I think that's a little bit of a hardening that goes on when we feel numb like that. So a soft heart welcomes relational feelings. It welcomes feelings towards God. And in my life, that has been a journey where I have longed and asked the Lord for more feeling, more emotion in my life. And it has gotten more. I have more of it than I used to, but I still want more. But to be able to have that soft heart that feels love, that feels even feeling pain, is a sign of a soft heart. Because if you harden your heart too much, you block out the pain. So some of those dynamics we could go way deep into, that deeper than I would have time for today. But a soft heart feels things. So God gives us the soft heart, but we need to maintain it, and we need to respond accordingly. So, like a lot of things, the source of it is God, but we also need to maintain it. We need to live up to it, I guess. Psalms 51:10 says, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." That's my prayer and my desire for myself and for all of us, that we would have clean, soft hearts for ourselves and for God and for each other. That every time when God works in us through whatever way, but that when His work in our life, that we yield to it, which is a soft heart, rather than resist it, which is a hard heart. So we can choose to yield to Him or resist Him in all the daily things that come up. So just, I guess, an encouragement to live in that yielded position and that awareness of, God, I am yours, and my heart is yours, and I want to learn from you, and I want to grow in my soft-heartedness, I guess. So thank you. That's what I had for us this morning.